Robb Stark is one of the most tragic characters in A Song of Ice and Fire. And he's also one of my favorites, even though he doesn't have a POV. And the reasons that I love him so much are his general complexity, his unique place in the story in terms of how he contrasts to other characters in different medias, and the way in which he haunts the narrative for his siblings in a positive and beautiful way. At the start of A Game of Thrones, Robb Stark is 14 years old. And while 14 in A Song of Ice and Fire is not 14 in our world, Robb Stark is still a kid for the intents and purposes of the story. But he's a kid, or possibly, depending on your definition, of a young man that has the weight of the world placed upon his shoulders randomly and swiftly. Robb is described in Book 1 as a strong, kind, brave, and promising young man. He's the eldest son that everyone looked up to, a beacon of hope and motivation for his younger siblings, and because of this, a lot of people find it incredibly easy to put all of their faith in Robb. His siblings often think that he would just always know what to do in any given situation. And this blind faith in this young man comes out when he is named King in the North within a year of his 14th birthday. The promise that the Stark family saw in Robb was seen by the Northern men as well. They saw his physical prowess in battle. They saw his giant wolf that he has a magical connection with. They recognized his charm and leadership skills and decided to run with it and fully back him. But here's the thing. Robb Stark wasn't ready, and he knew it. When Robb Stark calls his banners, he has one goal in mind: getting his family back and returning home. I highly doubt that he had any understanding of the massive war that was about to explode, or the tragic end that he could potentially have, at least for now. Robb is green around the ears. He's inexperienced, and this makes him vulnerable. Even if it wasn't their intention, the Northmen take advantage of Robb due to the position that they find him and themselves in. They've been itching to be free for generations, and now they have their chance. So overnight, Robb Stark goes from a kid throwing snowballs at his siblings to a man going to war and staining his hands with blood. This is not so subtly symbolized through the fact that the crown he wears doesn't properly fit. It falls lower than it's supposed to, because his head just isn't the right size yet. Catelyn describes it as looking like it's weighing on his neck and on his shoulders, causing Robb physical strain and making him have to manually hold the crown on his head or sit in an uncomfortable position. Beyond this, Robb Stark not being ready for his new role in the world is greatly and tragically shown through his mental state after the battle at the Whispering Wood. In Catelyn 10, A Game of Thrones, this occurs. Robb looked away into the woods, with the same brooding look that Ned often got. He killed them. Lord Karstark's sons, Gulbert Glover explained. Both of them, said Robb, Torrhen and Eddard, and Daron Hornwood as well. No one can fault Lannister on his courage, Glover said. When he saw that he was lost, he rallied his retainers and fought his way up the valley, hoping to reach Lord Robb and cut him down, and almost did. He mislaid his sword and Eddard Karstark's neck after he took Torrhen's hand off and split Daron Hornwood's skull open, Robb said. All the time, he was shouting for me. If they hadn't tried to stop him. And this moment just tears me apart. Robb Stark is traumatized by this battle. Not only did he get his hands dirty for the first time by killing men, but he is now feeling the immense guilt for watching his friends die in front of his eyes in order to protect him. When Catelyn sees that he's covered in blood and he is genuinely terrified, she understands that this is something Robb was not ready for. And this moment will be something that haunts Robb for the rest of his life, causing him PTSD that we will see throughout the story. Another moment that shows his immense pain and sorrow comes in the middle of Book 1, where Robb goes to Bran's side while he's resting and cries to him in the dark. That night, after the plates have been cleared, Robb carried Bran up to bed himself. Grey Wind led the way, and Summer came close behind. His brother was strong for his age, and Bran was as light as a bundle of rags, but the stairs were steep and dark, and Robb was breathing hard by the time they reached the top. He put Bran into bed, covered him with blankets, and blew out the candle. For a time, Robb sat beside him in the dark. Bran wanted to talk to him, but he did not know what to say. "We'll find a horse for you, I promise," Robb whispered at last. "Are they ever coming back?" Bran asked him. "Yes," Robb said with such hope in his voice that Bran knew he was hearing his brother and not just Robb the Lord. "Mother will be home soon. Maybe we can ride out and meet her when she comes. Wouldn't that surprise her, to see you a horse?" Even in the dark room, Bran could feel his brother's smile. "And afterward, we'll ride north to see the wall. We won't even tell Jon we're coming. We'll just be there one day, you and me. It will be an adventure." "An adventure," Bran repeated wistfully. He heard his brother sob. The room was so dark, he could not see the tears on Robb's face. So he reached out and found his hand, their fingers twined together. And this isn't even scripted, but this one passage just destroys me. As an older brother who feels a lot of responsibility and a lot of love for his younger sibling, it is so beautiful and hard for me to read something, to hear someone that thinks so like me be so hopeful and so scared. It's just, it's unbelievable. This character is so amazing. But back to the video. The point I'm trying to make with all of this is Robb Stark, for all of his promise and bravery, is still a kid. He's in over his head, his role doesn't suit his personality, and it's breaking him. Another horrifying example of this occurring is when he beheads Rickard Karstark. When he does this, the blow isn't swift. It takes Robb multiple cuts, and by the end he is covered in blood. Another tragic moment where George is trying to tell the audience that Robb's heart isn't fully in it. He isn't ready, and it's ruining him. Now, one major point against Robb Stark as a character is people think he's an idiot for marrying Jane Westerling instead of keeping his promise to House Frey. And while from a logistical standard it absolutely makes sense to find Robb's actions dumb, when you take into account the moral code that he was raised by, it makes perfect sense. Ned raised Robb to put your honor and morals above all else. And the second Robb dishonored Jane, based off of his father's own moral code, he felt he had a responsibility to wed her. Not to mention the fact that a love potion was probably used to weaken his resolve. So Robb Stark's love, honor, and responsibility that he felt in being a Stark mattered more to him and overpowered the duty that he had as a leader. A relatively childish decision, but nonetheless a tragically beautiful and understanding one. Now, the two hardest chapters in A Song of Ice and Fire for me to get through are the chapter where the Red Wedding occurs and the chapter right before. And the reason the chapter before hurts me so deeply is because there is this moment where Catelyn sees Robb staring off into the distance, much like how Ned used to, and much like how Robb did after the battle in the Whispering Wood. And in this moment, Robb is discussing his succession, who he wants to follow him as the Lord in Winterfell, and it seems like he's choosing Jon. And while that's the main focus of the chapter, what I really took away from it is this is a 16-year-old boy that has been forced into a role that he doesn't understand and is now just knows he's going to die. He knows that he's marked for death. He knows that there's no going back. And just to see a child have to come to terms with such a harsh reality of their situation, it is just so unbelievably horrifying in a way that only George R.R. Martin can accomplish. And then to roll right into the Red Wedding and have him utter that final word, mother, showing that for all of his bravery, all of his courage, everything that the man Robb Stark is, he's still a boy who just is looking for his mother's comfort in his darkest moments, a boy looking for the comfort of his father and his siblings. And Robb Stark's journey is one of trying to be something for other people, even if in your own heart you know that you can't do it, but trying your best anyway for the sake of the ones that you love. And as someone who very much feels like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders sometimes, like I owe a lot to a lot of people, and that I am very responsible for my own existence, seeing a character like Robb and not being in his head, just getting to see that from a different perspective, from the perspective of a mother, it is just such an unbelievably well done character that I can't praise enough. The words don't exist to explain how much I love this character. And one of my favorite parts about Robb Stark's character is the effect that he has on his siblings. Every single POV that we have from a Stark child, they think about Robb often, and he is this sign and symbol of light for them. I saw this really beautiful art a few months back, and it wasn't even about Robb, but it was this figure who was this embodiment of light, and there were these children flocking around that light and using it as a beacon for hope through their darkness. And the caption was Robb Stark to the Stark children, and it's so true. Who he was, what he tried to be, even though it ended up getting him killed, the motivation and the love that he gives his siblings keeps them alive. So even though the body of Robb Stark died at the Red Wedding, his soul, his goal, what he meant, who he was, lives on through Jon, through Arya, through Sansa, through Bran, and you're left with this character who you never even got to be in the head of, and yet he is felt so monumentously throughout the story. And I love the decision by George R. R. Martin to not make him a POV character and to not let him win the War of the Five Kings. Because while any other storyteller would have made Robb the hero that saves the day, George takes the very realistic approach of when you put a child into a war zone, they're not likely to live. But with that being said, because it is so realistic, the positive effect, the beauty that comes out of the character is so much more potent because George gave him and the story the respect that it deserves. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Robb Stark is one of the best written characters ever. I love him to bits. And I promise you, for those of you who have been waiting for me to express my love for characters instead of just my hatred, be ready, because I'm going to make many more of these for Song of Ice and Fire characters, because believe me, I am passionate about the characters I don't like, but I am more than double passionate about the characters that I love. So be ready for those, and again, thank you all so much for watching another video, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace.